What is the fight IQ secret that elite fighters use to dominate their competition, and how can you as a fighter benefit from understanding it? I've studied some of the greatest fighters of all time, Fedor, GSP, Demetrius Johnson, and all of them have used this same principle. But to show you how it looks in today's MMA, we'll break down on how two of the most dominant fighters in the UFC are applying it right now, Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev. In his first fight with Volkanovski, Islam was fully aware of Volk's elite counter-striking ability. He knew that if he attacked first, he would be walking straight into Volkanovski's game and putting himself at disadvantage. During the first round, Volk was waiting for Islam to overextend so he could counter him. But Islam knew this, which is why throughout the whole round, the only attacks Islam started on his own were the tip and the inside leg kick, both keeping Volkanovski at the second striking range. If you don't know the striking ranges, I recommend checking the full Fight IQ guide where we talk about that. Volk enters boxing range and exchanges with Islam. Islam knows that now it's his moment to attack or he could lose the round, since Volk had initiated almost all the attacks up to this point. Islam feints the right hand, and Volk, who had been waiting for Islam to overextend all this time, finally sees his opportunity to counter, but it was a feint, and he is intercepted with a knee from Islam, which takes him into the clinch and presses him against the cage to threaten with a takedown. And Islam finishes the sequence by taking Volkanovski's back. Volkanovski tends to drop his head before throwing an attack, and Islam threw a knee right at the moment when Volk lowered his head, after the right hand feint that Volk was waiting to counter. There is no exact public quote from Javier Mendez, Islam's coach, confirming this, but in high-level teams, it is a standard practice to train specific sequence based on expected patterns from the opponent. In this case, the sequence of the feint and the knee, plus the clinch with Islam's taking Volk's back, seems to be a specifically trained sequence in his training camp. Look at the sequence in round 3. Islam and Volk are in the clinch. Islam transitions to a double leg against the cage, and to defend, Volk uses double underhooks, which block Islam from completing the takedown. So Islam switches to a single leg, and Volk places both hands to defend, but by doing that he removed the underhook, and Islam goes back to the double leg, this time completing it. Now Volk tries to get back to his feet, but this gives Islam the chance to threaten with submissions. That's how he takes Volk's back in this round, and he does the same in the next one. What's interesting is how Islam adjusts this technique over time. First, he takes his opponent down, but lets him stand up on purpose. This gives him the chance to look for a submission. Before the fight with Dustin Poirier, Islam threatened with rear naked chokes and face cranks, but later he adjusted and let his opponent get back up to his feet in order to put him in a front headlock to transition to a Darce choke. As coach Saman Monfared from Power Training mentioned in a recent video about Ilia Topuria's training, the problem with many MMA teams is that they know what to do and study the opponent, but they don't train specific drills for what really happens in a fight. And what really happens in a fight is that your opponent will respond and counter your attacks. This is exactly what Topuria did in his training camp for his fight with Volkanovski. Topuria makes it clear that he studied Volkanovski in detail with his brother. They designed a plan where every strike had a strategic purpose. They wanted to provoke specific movements and reactions from Volk, and they used angles and long pre-planned combinations. This is not just watching videos. This is creating specific sequences to attack and counter-attack based on your opponent's patterns. What's interesting is that not only Ilia Topuria, two-division UFC champion, admits that he studies his opponents in detail, but he also designs attacks to make the opponent move in the direction that favors him. That gives us context to understand the sequence from Islam in round 1 against Volkanovski. Islam just doesn't throw strikes, he waits and feints the right hand. That provokes Volk to lower his head and intercepts him with a knee to take him into the clinch. That level of precision is hardly a coincidence. It most likely comes from drills specifically designed in his camp, just like what Ilia described. It's not enough to just know what your opponent does or to repeat isolated techniques. You need to train with specific drills that simulate your opponent's reactions, study their patterns, provoke the responses you expect, and prepare your combinations for those exact moments. Just like Topuria and Islam's team don't train generic moves, but real fight sequences, you can also take your training to another level by practicing how you'll react when your opponent counters. Don't leave all the work to your coach. Dedicate yourself to the analysis too, and design drills based on your opponent's tendencies. Always expect counters within the sequences of your own attacks. This is the principle that we call in the full Fight IQ guide, Counter the Counter. I highly recommend you go check it. The link is in the description.